Mitt Romney released his 2011 tax returns today. The Republican presidential candidate and his wife, Ann, paid nearly $2 million in taxes last year on more than $13.5 million in income, mostly coming from investments. In all, the Romneys paid an effective tax rate of about 14%. They also gave about $4 million to charities. That's about 30% of their income. Of course, the governor has faced mounting pressure from President Obama and Democrats and others to release more financial and tax information. This time, he and his wife released last year's return and a summary of their tax history over the past 20 years.
Mitt Romney's been pretty busy on the campaign trail. Maybe that's why he got an extension on his taxes. He filed his 2011 return today. Mitt and Ann Romney's 14% tax rate could have been lower. They didn't claim all their charitable donations. But the Romneys earned most of their money from investments, so they paid a lower rate than other wealthy Americans. According to the Tax Policy Center, the richest taxpayers, those with incomes over $2.4 million, paid an average effective tax rate of 21.5% last year. The release comes after months of political pressure for Romney to open up about his finances. It also closes what politicos are calling a colossally bad week for his campaign. Monday, liberal magazine Mother Jones posted this video of the candidate telling donors nearly half of Americans don't pay taxes.
There are 47% who are with him, who are dependent upon government, who believe that they are victims, who believe that government has a responsibility to care for them, who believe that they're entitled to health care, to food, to housing, to you name it.
The comments seem to have divided national politics, fueling the debate on how involved the government should be in an individual's success. Today, President Obama slammed Romney for only representing half the country.
I don't believe we can get very far with leaders who write off half the nation as a bunch of victims, who think that they're not interested in taking responsibility for their own lives.
As this battle heats up so close to November, this debate between a nation of makers or a nation of takers becomes more than a philosophical argument about the role of government. It may play a significant role at the ballot box. Sylvia Hall, NBR, Washington.
For more analysis and opposing views on this debate, makers versus moochers, we're happy to have with us Jared Bernstein. He's senior fellow at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. And Nick Eberstadt, political economist at the American Enterprise Institute and author of the upcoming book, A Nation of Takers, America's Entitlement Epidemic. Gentlemen, welcome. And Nick, let me begin with you. You say that the U.S. government has become an entitlements machine with millions of Americans freeloading off of everyone else. Tell us what you mean.
I think I said it was an entitlement machine. I don't think I ever used the word freeloading. The facts of the matter are that 50 years ago, the federal government devoted $1 to entitlement to every $2 it devoted to everything else, which is to say governing. It's been turned upside down. Now, $2 out of every $3 the federal government allocates is for entitlements.
What are your thoughts on this, Jared? You told me that you reject even this notion of the term moochers and that this whole debate is misguided. What are your thoughts on this?
Right. I mean, I feel pretty strongly that it is a misguided debate and a divisive one and very much a false framework because the dynamics of the lives of Americans can't possibly be divided into makers or takers or moochers. If you think about Social Security and Medicare, by far the largest part of the entitlements that Nick is talking about, the beneficiaries of those programs paid into those programs during their working lives. So clearly they were makers at that point, and then upon retirement they draw on those benefits. I think those are exemplary social insurance programs.
So what do you say to that, Nick? I mean, at some point we are makers and at other times we are takers, like Jared said. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. If the social insurance programs in America, if Medicare, Social Security, and the others were soundly funded actuarially, if they worked like Geico does, I'd have no debate about that. The problem is they are woefully underfunded. They are trillions and trillions of dollars underfunded in terms of their current promises versus their current trajectory of take-in. Somebody's got to pay for that. The answer to that somebody is going to be the currently unborn. And that transfer is a taker transfer. It's by people who aren't part of the system that works.
So I actually think that's an interesting point in the sense that, at least when I listen to what Nick is saying, I don't really hear a description of takers and moochers and makers. I hear a system of a couple of programs, we're talking about Social Security and Medicare, that absolutely have some accounting shortfalls. And those can be addressed through public policies in ways that I think are not only essential to ensure that those programs have the durability they should, but are very much within the realm of policy management. We can do this. It's actually not all that hard.
It may not be all that hard. I mean, I see the arithmetic that Jared's talking about. The problem is that if we want to make these programs square and work, you've got basically two answers. You can raise taxes a whole lot, or you can cut what people are expecting a whole lot. And so, gee whiz, why have we not had this discussion for the last 30 years?
Again, that's a very reasonable point, and I think the solution is going to involve more tax revenue and probably some cuts on the benefit side. That is very different than this divisive framework, and I'm not saying Nick brought us there, but we are into this debate that really doesn't represent reality when, as you said, at some point you're a, quote, maker, other points you're a taker. That applies to everyone.
Jared,
Real quickly, let me jump in because we have less than half a minute.
One other thing, this is quite important. Over the last 30 years, the percentage of people getting means-tested benefits has gone from 17% to 35% of U.S. households. One can't say it's because people are twice as poor as they were 30 years ago. There's a march towards ever greater entitlements on a needs basis, and that's problematic.
Well, I think that has a lot to do in part with the demographics of the nation. I mean, we for example, we are an older nation. We are with a much greater share of people in their years when they draw more from those programs. So demographically, so demographically,
guys,
I don't think
have
that's
to
necessarily
jump
so
in.
problematic.
I've got to jump in. This is a very interesting conversation. Wish we could continue it. Perhaps we can, especially during this election period. Thank you so much for joining us and for this lively debate. Jared Bernstein from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, Nick Eberstadt of the American Enterprise Institute.